Let's talk about the ninth inning on Wednesday. What was the conversation like between you and Mendy between innings?
I wanted to finish the game, and so I went down and sat in my spot and just kind of, doing my regular between innings routine, and came and grabbed me and said, let's go talk. And I just told him, look, I feel good. I feel strong. I have enough to finish this thing. Let me go and do it. For me and Mendy, over the last 2 years, the relationship and the trust that we've built, we got to that point where, I did not want to come out of that game and had no plans to. And I think, reassuring him and then him having the confidence to send me back out was awesome.
Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Jonathan Barron, joined by David Peterson, not just David Peterson, top 10 starter in MLB, David Peterson. And David, that was the title of an episode we had after your start against the Dodgers a few weeks back. And you've really made us look smart. A lot of people were like, that's interesting. I never thought about that. And you've been the good since then, of course. After that, you went to LA, had another great outing, and you threw your first career complete game this past week against the Nationals. Just talk to us about that entire day. Did you do anything different that day, or was it a normal day for David Peterson?
No, I mean, it was another normal day, prepared the same way I always do. And nothing really felt different all the way until we finished the game. But yeah, other than that, preparation, all that stuff, like normal day, everything was the same.
Now, I know that when Vito and I spoke with you in spring training, we talked about the hip surgery and how it made you just more kind of a free and easy athlete. And that goes back to 2024, your return. And the stat I just gave, you being a top 10 pitcher in baseball, that really is you going back since your return. I believe you're tied for the fifth best ERA in baseball, a 2.74 mark. As you continue to move further from the operation, what in your mind has helped you since you had that surgery to get you to where you are right now?
Yeah, I think it's just a culmination of things. I think continuing to feel good physically, having a full regular off season to feel like I'm back to 100% with strength and everything. And I think, learning from what I did last year well and continuing to work on the things that I need to work on. And then, I think, just simplifying it, taking it one game at a time, one pitch at a time. And just making sure I'm in the present and focused on every pitch.
All right, I'm gonna read you the names. Since the start of 2024, minimum 150 innings pitched, lowest ERAs in baseball. You're not a jinx guy, right? You don't believe in jinxes? All right, good, because everyone calls me Johnny Jinx, so just had to clear that before we went ahead with this exercise. Number 1, Paul Skeens, good pitcher, 189. The guy you went toe-to-toe with, by the way. Number 2, Tariq Skubal, good pitcher, 226. Number 3, Chris Sale, 251, good pitcher. Number 4, Zach Wheeler, 265. Number 5, David Peterson, 274, tied with Hunter Green, also a good pitcher. You're ahead of guys like Fried, Yamamoto, Burns, Imanaga, Framber, Crochet. When you hear these names, how does that feel?
It feels good. Like you said, you named off a lot of guys that have performed really well at the big league level, some for a short period of time and some others that have a long track record of being at the top of the game. And I think it's, it's cool to hear, but I think it's also kind of indicative of what I expect for myself and the standard I set for myself. And not necessarily trying to put myself in the rankings and have, people put a numerical value on where I stand in the league, but I think, knowing who I am and what I'm capable of, I think for me, the focus is trying to be the best version of myself that I can be, and what I try and do.
Let's talk about the ninth inning on Wednesday. Your pitch count was high 90s, and we saw this last year when Sevy threw his complete game against the Marlins, where he and Mendy had a conversation on the mound, and Sevy talked his way into staying in that game. What was the conversation like between you and Mendy between innings? You were in the dugout. You didn't have the jacket on. You didn't really give handshakes like you were done. From our vantage point up in the control room, we were like, is he staying? Is he not? We couldn't really tell. What was said between you and Mendy between innings?
I think, when I came in after the 8th, he was kind of talking to some of the other coaches, and I wanted to finish the game. And so I went down and sat in my spot and just kind of, doing my regular between innings routine, and came and grabbed me and said, let's go talk. And yeah, I think, it was just kind of, I think for him wanting to monitor where I was at, how I felt, obviously being at 96 pitches through 8, kind of, we're getting in that zone. And, had we been maybe in the 7th, it would have been a different conversation. But, I think being able to go into the hundreds with your pitches, and I just told him, look, I feel good. I feel strong. I have enough to finish this thing. Let me go and do it. And yeah, I mean, I think just being able to have that line of communication, and him knowing where I stand and knowing that I want this and I can go and get the job done, I think is important. And then also, I think last year we saw it with Sevy, how Mendy had him with the Yankees for quite a while, knew the guy, knew the pitcher, knew what he was capable of. And Sevy was able to talk his way into finishing that game. And I think, for me and Mendy, over the last 2 years, the relationship and the trust that we've built, we got to that point where, I did not want to come out of that game, and had no plans to. And I think, reassuring him and then him having the confidence to send me back out was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of skippers, especially some older guys, might just have their way. You good? Okay. Might have their way and stick to it and be like, nope, we're going by the book here. 8 innings. I've had enough. He's good. We've got a big lead. We'll get the final 3 outs from the bullpen. It's only June. But like you said, you had the conversation, and he was open to having a conversation. We've seen it in the past. I mentioned Severino. I remember back in April of last season, Jose Quintana talked his way into staying in a game, wound up striking out Wilson Contreras. Mendy seems to listen to you guys. How important is it for you guys to know that the skipper is willing to have that dialogue, and you guys can really have that trust in the manager, and he has it with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. I think something like that takes time, and just building the relationship over time, having the communication, and it goes both ways. I think us listening to where he's at with the decision he wants to make, and him listening to how we feel, and for both sides, being completely honest. And I think that's where it starts. It's the honesty, the respect, and just being able to have him, kind of lay out where we were at, and then me, be able to tell him how I felt, where I was at, and that I wanted to go back out for the 9th. I think it's been a lot of fun getting to know Mendy and working with him and building that relationship. And so I think, we see that after the game where we gave each other a hug, and I mean, I just told him thank you. I think that's part of like the culmination of all the work that we put in, and the time that we've had together, where I wanted to go, wanted to see me go, and wanted to make sure I was in a position where I felt like I could do it, and we got the job done.
Before Wednesday, when's the last time you threw a complete game?
Oh, I didn't know I had one in the big leagues, but I guess I had one that was rain shortened.
Oh, 9 in a complete
and
game.
I got a loss.
When was that?
I don't know. 21 or 22.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must have been a while
I didn't
ago.
remember it, but last time was college.
As a Duck.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great segue to my next question, because you were drafted back in 2017. You've been a member of this organization for a really long time, and it's so cool to see the guy who the Mets entrusted with a first-round pick become what you have become, especially these last 2 years as a front-end starter. You've seen a lot. You've seen change in the organization. There's been ownership change. There's been multiple front office regimes, multiple managers. From David Peterson's perspective, how much has changed for the better? And especially with this regime, systems they've implemented that have helped you and all your teammates become the best versions of yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you said it best. I mean, we've had a lot of change since I've been here. And I think everyone that's come in has done things well and put their mark on it. And then I think, with all the change that we've had, it's up to the guys, player-wise, to continue to forge forward the culture and the positive things we're trying to build here. And I only think, Steve and Alex buying the team was kind of that next big step for us in terms of, we were going to have obviously the money available to spend and go get guys that we needed or fill holes that we had. But I also think, one of the first conversations I had with Steve, he just point blank asked, like, how do we get better? How do we
Really? He asked you.
What do we need to do from your perspective, like on the field? And he asked a lot of guys. And I think, there's a lot of times where you have change and people come in and say, well, this is how we're going to do things. This is the way I want it done and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I need to paint this picture before we can go forward and get the take from guys. And then you talk about bringing in Stearns and his track record before he got here spoke for itself, and talking to other guys that played for him, they talked about his brilliance from a player development, player acquisition standpoint, building a team. And so I think, we're really starting to see the fruit of the labor in terms of a couple years in now. I think we've had guys, talking to someone yesterday about 12 guys or whatever on the roster that are farm system products. And I think it starts from the top. I think it starts from Nemo's probably the longest standing one.
He was 2011 drafted.
And then Pete, McNeil, myself, McGill, Alvarez, all these guys, they just, we start to see guys come through the system, and you want to be able to go out and get pieces that aren't on the team or aren't in the system. But I think, going back to Steve, he said it best in his intro press conference, like, we want to win now, we want to win soon, but we also want to have the best of both worlds, where we have a farm system that's loaded and guys are chomping at to get to the big leagues, and kind of do it both ways, where we're producing good players that come up and help the team, but also have the resources to go out and fill holes as we fit.
And how much are you guys thinking about the sustainability? I mean, we have the amateur draft coming up pretty soon. The last couple draft classes have been great for the Mets. You've got a guy like Nolan McLean, 2023 pick, who's already a AAA. Brandon Sproat, another guy like that. For you as a ball player, you guys all eventually reach free agency unless you extend, obviously. And you have choices in this game, especially when you play enough years. How important is it for you to look at the, blueprint of an organization and say, yeah, this is a place I want to stay because of what they are doing in the minor leagues? A lot of guys, I feel like, maybe aren't thinking about what's going on in low A or in the Florida Complex League. Kind of feels like you are paying attention to those things. Yes, maybe not the FCL on a daily basis, but
yeah, yes and no. I think, you obviously come draft time, you see picks as they go, and I think you see it, but we don't necessarily, at least for me, I don't necessarily put a lot into it. I think for me, it's more of trusting, like, that's not any part of my job title. Like, I'm supposed to go out there and pitch and get outs and help this team win. And so I think having, the front office, the player development, seeing where that's at, and knowing that we have really good people in the building that can do a great job of selecting and developing guys only gives us confidence. And I think it's, you start to see guys climb the ranks and get closer, and you start to meet guys when they have their first big league spring training and all that. And so it's kind of a natural process in terms of getting to know those guys and being exposed to the talent that we have in the minor leagues. But at the same time, we have a job to do. We have 162 games, and we got to take care of business with the 26 guys that are here. And so, I think it's exciting to have a farm system that has players, whether it's the top 100 or, just that are performing and getting the recognition, and you start to hear about guys. But at the same time, we've got the guys that we're fighting with every day and going to battle with. And so eventually the hope, obviously, is to develop guys that can come up and help us win games. I think it's, it's cool over time to be in that seat as a guy, as a prospect coming up through the organization, and then getting here and watching the farm system behind you continue to build.
Talking about talent, before the national start, your previous two starts was against a pretty talented Dodger lineup here at Citi Field on May 24th, and then the series finale in LA. Two-part question here. First of all, how challenging is it as a pitcher to face the same team twice? They've seen you, they adjust to you, you're adjusting back, cat and mouse game. How do you go about maneuvering that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely more of a challenge because they've seen you, and I think especially when you see teams, I feel like over the last couple of years we've seen it more in the schedule where we have teams back to back, and or we have like a home and a road split by a series or two, and so yeah, I mean, I think you go in with the game plan, and I don't think a whole lot changes. I think you're obviously aware that they've seen you and you've pitched guys in a certain way, and so for me, I kind of go back and look at the game plan, my scouting report, but then also, what happened in the last game. How did I pitch guys? Is there anything, to be aware of that they might adjust their plan from what they saw last week? But I also think some of that, go into the game, go into the start with the game plan, and then the game's going to kind of dictate those. The hitters they'll give away some of the stuff in terms of either what they're looking for or how they're trying to approach you. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely a challenge to face teams back to back and close together. But I also think it's fun to do that, especially against good teams. You're constantly in great competition, and it's always a battle.
We'll zoom in a bit closer on the Dodger lineup. One guy in particular I have to ask you about is Shohei Ohtani, who over the 2 starts I mentioned, you punched out 5 times. And amongst guys that Ohtani has swung against 10 or more times, I know this is kind of a granular stat, no one has made him whiff more than you this season. You've got him to whiff on 56% of his swings against you. This is a guy that went 50-50 last year. What is it about you and Shohei Ohtani, and to this point, it being a pretty one-sided affair? What's the plan against him? How about that? How do you game plan for a guy like Ohtani?
I'm not telling you that. No, I think, he's obviously a great player, and he's done what he's done, like you mentioned, the 50-50, and he's doing stuff at an MVP level from both sides of the ball. And yeah, I think, a lot of it is just execution, being on top of your game, whether it's him or anybody else in that lineup. Yeah, I think for me, I look at it as like a nameless and faceless approach. So
Okay.
This guy's in the leadoff spot. And it's, I prepare for the hitter that way rather than, I've got to go up and face so-and-so or face, it's everybody
Guy with
here
a
is everybody here has done something to belong in the big leagues. And they're talented enough. And so I don't think, you have guys. Yeah. You're going to have an Ohtani versus somebody else. The numbers are going to be different. Probably going to have less room for error with the better hitters in the league, but you still got to execute. You still got to compete and have confidence in your stuff. And yeah, I think, knowing yourself as a player and being able to use your strengths and try and keep guys off balance.
We had Brett Beatty in the hot seat a couple days ago. I don't know if you caught wind of this. We asked him about his start. Did you catch wind of this?
I saw it, yeah.
All right. You on Twitter?
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of fans of David Peterson on Twitter. You know what they call your pitch days, right? DP day. That's the thing going around on Twitter. So I guess you saw his starting 5. I was going to ask what you think it is, and then do you agree with his starting 5?
I like it. I think it's a good starting 5.
Are there any tweaks?
Thanks to Brett for throwing me in there.
My bad. Also, he said Petey. I thought he was talking about Pete Alonso, and it's stupid of me because I know you're a great athlete. I know that you got some game, so that was my bad. But what would your starting 5 be? You with him there? So he had you, Sean, up front. Yeah. He had him at the 3.
Okay.
He had TT at the 2, I think, and Paco at the 1.
But I wouldn't change a whole lot, honestly. Trying to think. I guess you could run like I would put Griff in there.
Really?
With Paco and have those two kind of. Griff's very athletic, very talented, wiry, quick. I think he could do a good job as a point guard and get the ball around. And so yeah, I mean, I don't think Brett was very far off.
All right, you played high school hoops, right? A little bit?
A little bit, yeah. I didn't play a whole lot. I was, kind of working out for basketball, and then varsity baseball coach came my freshman year. Was like, hey, why don't you come do winter workouts? And I was like, okay.
Well,
But I played growing up.
I do think you made the right decision with focusing on the baseball. Did you ever dunk in a game during your short basketball career in high school?
No, I didn't actually play any games in high school.
You didn't
I
actually
played before
play.
high school, but yeah, I ended up playing my freshman year, yeah.
So no dunks. Is there a dude in that clubhouse that walks around showing off their high school mixtape, if you would, whether it be on the gridiron? Because Mike Vassell with the White Sox now, former Met farmhand, he used to, the story is, walk around the complex in spring training and show off his handles on the hardwood. So any guys in there that like to glorify the high school days?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's not really anyone walking around showing their tape, but I've seen a couple times, whether it's on the big board or in other places, Tyrone's numbers as a football player.
Didn't he like?
And he had like 30
Derrick
touchdowns. He had like 30 touchdowns, 20 running, 10 receiving or something his senior year, and it's like stupid numbers. But obviously, knowing TT, he's a very very discreet guy, very humble, and but yeah, I mean, seeing some of that stuff, it's like, holy crap! Like,
how awesome is it to have him in center field tracking down everything? It feels like every night we're here at Citi Field, he's making a highlight reel play. But also the infield defense. You're obviously a big ground ball guy, and that defense behind you helps out immensely. Just knowing that you can go out there, be yourself, allow guys to put balls in play, and the guys are going to turn those into outs.
Yeah, I mean, I need those guys. Like, I can't do what I do without those guys. Obviously, being a guy that gets a lot of ground balls, trying to pitch to contact, and I think it gave me a lot of confidence when David Stearns came in and he talked about the priority on being a good defensive team, not giving away extra outs to teams. And I think a lot of that, separates the difference between teams in the standings and when it comes to playoff time. And so I think he obviously has a long history with Tyrone and knows the player and brought him over for a reason. And I think, yeah, I mean, seems like it's a different guy every night. But yeah, I mean, he's done an incredible job out there. He's played Gold Glove defense, and I think we have some other guys around the diamond that have gotten that honor, and yeah, it's just they come to work every single day, and I think one of the most special things about the group as a whole is no matter how well or how much they're struggling on offense, you just don't see those guys take it to the field and let that get in their head and make a mistake and start compounding those. They move on, they get on the defensive side of the ball, and they're ready to go. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have all the guys that I've had on defense and watching them play at their best.
Where do you stand on Starling Marte's haircut? First of all, what would you call it? I asked Edwin this yesterday. He was dumbfounded. He didn't have a name. What would you call it? Do you have one?
I don't. It's Marte. I mean, we saw something the other day in the clubhouse. It was like Marte Parte in the back or Marte Parte in reverse, or something like that. So I thought that was pretty funny. And but no, I mean, I think Marty's he's a guy that's full of personality, and he goes to the beat of his own drum when it comes to that stuff, and it's cool to see him and other guys, but it's cool to see him, just be 100% authentically himself, and I think it makes him the special person and player that he is.
Should have asked you this at the beginning of the interview, but I'll ask you now. Your complete game, Wednesday night, June 11th against the Nationals. There was close to 40,000 people in the stadium. Schools aren't even out yet in the New York City public schools, and Mets fans are packing this place out. I can only imagine it's going to continue. You guys are going to continue to win ball games. Got a great team here, and the fan base is embracing this team like we've really never seen before in the Citi Field era. How much does it mean to you and all the 26 guys in that clubhouse to see the love affair that you guys are having with the fans and vice versa?
It's amazing. I mean, like you said, they have brought the energy all year. I don't think it's a coincidence that we have the best home record in the MLB. I think a lot of that has to do with them and the energy that they bring. And yeah, I mean, I think we saw it right away. There was a couple conversations in the dugout, even in April, where it's like they are
The second home game against the
bringing
Blue
it,
Jays.
you
Remember
know?
that? It was like 40 degrees outside. They're going
Yeah.
nuts in the stands.
I mean, yeah, we haven't had the greatest weather. And
No, we haven't.
Still waiting for it to warm up. I thought we might have been there, but we got some adversity today with the weather. But yeah, I mean, they've showed up. They brought the energy. They've been loud, and I think it only drives us to continue to play better. And yeah, they're a big part of the equation.
I want to make one plea real quick on your behalf. 2025 MLB All-Star Game is coming up in Atlanta. I did this with Reed, who is definitely deserving of being an All-Star.
Absolutely.
So is this guy. I think Dave Roberts is the one who picks. Have they changed that? Who picks the pitchers? I know it's not voted upon. Do you know the
Yeah, I know it's
system?
not fan vote, but
I don't know if it's a committee now or...
I think it's players or coaches, and I don't know if we have a vote on it or not. But I know the coaches are the driving force behind that.
Well, whatever it is. You guys heard the list I read off before. The top 10 ERAs in MLB since start of 2024. And this season alone, no one is more deserving to be in Atlanta than this guy right here. So don't get it wrong. David Peterson needs to be in that All-Star game. One of many, many Mets that should be there. Dude, you've been incredible to watch. Your entire career to this point has been so much fun to watch. It is a pleasure to chat with you. One of our favorite guys to join the show. David Peterson, everyone, thanks so much, David, for joining us, and continued success.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and thanks for having me on.
It's a bad day to be a worm when David Peterson's on the mound. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Meet at the Apple. Before we wrap up, a quick reminder to get out to your local PC Richard & Son store. They've got the absolute lowest prices and the most knowledgeable and friendliest sales staff. Whatever you might need, whether it be a TV, washer, dryer, fridge, a mattress, video game consoles, whatever it is that you need, they've got it. They've been doing it for so long, since 1909. Get out to your local PC Richard & Son. Like always, thanks for joining us at the Apple. Mets and Rays wrap this 3-game series up. Mets heading to Atlanta. We'll catch you then. Until next time, we'll meet you at the Apple.